Today I continue my Carnival series with Ceilia the Performing Seal and a faux Game of Chance wheel. Welcome to Up All Night DIY, I'm Monica, thanks for joining me. Today I also have the honor of co-hosting along with my friends Dawn of Shabby Meets Bling and Jody of Jody at Southern Seasons, the Can't Sleep Creations How You Do Red, White, and Blow collaboration. We're joined by lots of our talented friends who will inspire you with their handmade red, white, and blue decor and DIYs. We have a lot to do, let's get into it. DIY 1, Ceilia the Performing Seal. First thing I did was sketch out Ceilia, and then I transferred her onto a piece of wood, took it to my scroll saw, and cut it out. There she is. I sanded her all down, and she's ready for paint. Ceilia will get 2 coats of Ceramcoat Rain Gray. I'm also going to paint the flip side of her, because where I'm going to place her, there's a mirror, so there will be a reflection of the back side of her. I won't really give the back all of the details. I'm just going to paint her in the same colors as the front. You feel me? Her stand will get 2 applications of white paint as base coat. I want Ceilia to complement and be a companion piece to last week's projects, Bubbles and Snuffles, the baby Carnival elephants, so she will have similar embellishments. I cut out a trapezoid shape from cardstock to mimic the stand that I created for Bubbles the baby elephant. I'm going to trace that on the Ceilia stand, and we're going to paint those areas with 2 coats of Ceramcoat Watermelon. The palette I'm using here is basically the same palette that I used on Bubbles and that I will use on most, if not all, of my Carnival projects. We're going to put her aside for a moment, let her dry. We'll be using a 1.9 and a 2.3 inch foam ball. I got these at the Dollar Tree. And we're going to cover those with some Model Magic. We're also going to need a toothpick. I'm going to take the larger ball and I'm going to force it down over Ceilia's nose to make a little dent in it. This is so that we can attach it later. Right, let's grab a handful of clay. We're going to knead it to condition it, as always. Then we'll roll it out nice and flat. There you go. It's relatively thin. I cover the ball with the clay, pressing it to make sure that it's well adhered to the foam. And I'm going to cut away any excess, which we're going to hang on to because we'll cover any bare spots that we may have with the excess clay. You know, I like to roll the ball around on the table to make sure that it's as smooth as possible, and I do this as I go. It just is much easier, I think, to achieve a smooth finish this way. And I'm going to repeat the exact same process with the smaller ball. Once I get that all sorted out, we're going to set this aside overnight to dry. I've pulled out my Folk Art floating medium. Let's do a little detail work. I dip my flat brush into the medium, which is this clear gel here on my plate. I work it into the bristles, and then I will side load by scooping some of the Hippo gray paint onto the corner of my brush. I'm going to stroke the brush on my plate, and this will blend the paint with the medium on the bristles, giving me a gradient of color. The color will be darkest at the corner of the brush, and it'll get lighter as it moves toward the middle of the brush. With the paint corner of my brush where I want my darkest line, right along the edge here, I'll stroke down along the edge of Ceilia, creating a shaded outline. I reload my brush as necessary with both the paint and the medium. If the color is too light in an area, you can always go back over that area, darken it up a wee bit. If it's too dark, you can use a clean brush and just add a little bit of medium to your brush, stroke over the area that's too dark. And this will lift some of that color and you can feather it out as you stroke. It's really great because it almost works as an eraser. So as you can see here, I'm doing a little bit of detail outlining around her flippers. And then, for the most part, I'm just going to outline the shape of her. I'm going to keep this shading very basic. I'm only going to use the one color. A lot of times, most times, I like to use multiple colors on the shading. But for this time, we're just going to go with the Hippo gray. I'll use Americana Cherry Red to shade the red parts of the drum. I load my brush in the exact same way, and we're just going to stroke along the edges of the red here. Again, I'm just basically outlining this colored area. And we're going to float the white areas with Tropic Bay blue. And you can see I'm floating under her belly because that's where a natural shadow would be. So we'll do a little under her flippers, and then we'll just go right down the sides of the little white triangles. Let's add Ceilia's eye with some charcoal gray, and we're going to fill in her nose too while we're at it. So it's just a simple little, elongated U, little, almost like a smile. And I'm just going to fill in the very tip of her nose. I used the end of a dowel to dot her cheek with Drizzle gray. I did this right below her eye. And now I'm using my detail brush and Drizzle gray to highlight along the edge of Ceilia. I'm adding the highlight just inside where I added the shading, because I think that's where she might be kind of shiny looking. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to add some blue vinyl quasars to her stand, because that's how I roll. Just like I did for Bubbles, the elephant. His stand has the little blue quasars. I cut one of the stars in half so that I can use them on the edges, and I'll use the other half on the other side. We're going to add some white stars around the blue stars. Why not? You know me and my quasar stars. I always have them on hand, and I'm always ready to use them. Okay, let's add an ocean reef outline to this stand. These are the same colors that I mentioned that I used in last week's video. This will give this stand a more finished appearance and mimic Bubbles' stand. So we're just going to outline the wee triangles with the ocean reef blue. And as always, I'll have a list of all my paints and supplies in the description box for you. Also, we're going to use the ocean reef to give the white stars drop shadows, keeping the drop shadows on the right hand side here. I love the way a drop shadow looks. I think it really adds a little extra something something. I give the larger blue stars a white drop shadow. Well, I guess really it's a highlight, but I'm going to keep it to the right, just like I did with the blue drop shadow on the white stars. You feel me? I added that to Ceilia's cheek with some watermelon. I still want the gray to show through, so I'm using a smaller dot. Once that's dry, I'm going to add a little white highlight dot. Celia's bouncing balls are dry and ready for some paint. I'm going to paint the larger ball to look kind of like a beach ball. I'm just using red and white stripes. And I'm going to start with the white sections, which we're going to skip through because you can't really see it well on camera. I also want to mention that I sprayed Ceilia with a coat of clear matte sealer. And while we have the white out, I'm going to paint the center strip of the smaller ball with white as well. I'm using watermelon to paint in the two red sections on the larger ball, and they're going to get 2 coats. I paint the top and bottom sections of the smaller ball with 2 coats of ocean reef. I'll use that lovely ocean reef blue to paint lines to divide the sections of the larger ball, the beach ball. And I'm doing my best to keep those lines as straight as possible, always a little difficult on a rounded surface. And let's do a watermelon outline around the blue sections on the smaller ball. Gives it a nice finished look. I attach red vinyl stars to the top and bottom of the small ball, and I will add blue stars around the middle section. You know what, let's add 1 star in each of the sections of the larger ball too. I'm going to pounce a top coat of Mod Podge on both balls to seal them, and I'm using a cosmetic sponge to do this. I cut a small piece of a 1x2 to use as a stand for Ceilia, and I'm going to first attach it with some Tight Bond wood glue. I'm just going to spread that on there somewhat liberally, and I'm going to add a couple of dots of hot glue for the quick grab. I'm going to line it up on the back of her stand, and I'll hold it until it sets. To ensure that her stand stays in place and for a little extra support, I'm going to use a corner bracket right here. So I'm just going to mark the holes, drill pilot holes, and then screw the corner bracket into place. This is just a small 1-inch corner bracket, so I'm only going to need 2 screws here. One will go into the base, and one will go into the back of Ceilia. Super simple to do, and it adds that extra support. So to embellish the lovely Ceilia, I made a beautiful red, white, and blue crepe paper collar. I have an embellishments video that shows how to make these, so I will link that in the description box for you. I've wrapped it around her neck, and I'm going to hot glue the ends together, and then I'll fully fluff her collar. And I'm going to faff about with that until I'm happy with it. So I'm gently separating the layers. I did 2 white layers, one on top, one on bottom, and one red and one blue in the middle. Right, so there we go. That gives you a general idea, right? Now I'm going to attach the small ball on top of the larger ball using a toothpick as an anchor. And I'm going to add a little bit of fabric glue to the toothpick so that the balls stay in place. I filled the divot on the bottom of the ball with some fabric glue, and I'm going to add a wee drop of hot glue to the tip of Ceilia's nose, and we'll get those balls on there so that she's balancing them right on the tip of her nose. And that's it for Ceilia. She's ready to show you her performing skills. She's quite the talent. I love the way she turned out. She's so stinking cute. DIY 2, we're going to make a faux carnival wheel. I ran to Dollar Tree, but mine didn't have any of the wood rounds, so I bought some of the wood squares that they had there, and I cut my own. These measure 10 inches in circumference, and I'm going to give them 2 coats of white paint. I also grabbed some of these wooden easels from the Dollar Tree. I'm actually going to make 2 of these, so I grabbed 2 of everything. I thought these would be perfect for the wheel stand. The easel comes with 5 pieces of wood, some hardware, and a teeny tiny little slip that has the directions on it. We're also going to need a wood slat and some wood cubes. I got these at the Dollar Tree as well. Before I assemble the easel, I'm going to give everything 2 coats of Ocean Reef. Even though you're not really going to see these wood slats in the back or the cubes, I still painted them anyway. So here we have the hardware that comes with the easel. We have a long screw, a short screw, 2 wing nuts, and we also have 2 cup hooks and a chain. I won't be using the cup hooks or the chain, but that's totally up to you. The first thing I'm going to do is partially assemble the crossbar by pushing the large screw through the front piece, which is the wider piece of wood, and then adding the back piece to this. The holes are already in the wood, so you don't have to fuss with that. Once we get that sorted out, we're going to set this aside. Now we'll assemble the tripod section. The center piece is the square piece, and that has a hole that goes straight through. And the side pieces are the angled pieces. They also have holes. So we're going to match up the holes and use the smaller screw to attach them. We're just going to line up those holes, push the screw through, and then we can add the wing nut at the end of the screw. As you can see, it's a pretty simple process. As I was turning the wing nut, the whole screw was turning, so I grabbed my screwdriver, stuck it in the end of the screw, held that in place, and twisted the wing nut. That made it much easier to get the wing nut on nice and tight. Okay, let's open this up, take a look at it. This is nice and tight, So I really don't need that chain. I think we'll be okay with just the wing nuts. Now to add the crossbar, I'm going to slide the two legs of the easel between the crossbars, and I will then add the second wing nut to the screw on the crossbar, twisting that nice and tight. And that's the easel assembled. It is pretty easy. Again, I'm employing my screwdriver here just to make sure that that screw is all the way through, and we'll get the wing nut on the back and we should be good to go. I did my best to get that crossbar nice and level. Yep, I think that's the perfect stand for our Carnival wheel. What do you think? Let's work on the wheels now. So here's my freshly painted white wheel. I divided the round into 4 equal sections, and I placed a vinyl number stencil in each section. I'll pounce over the vinyl stencils with some Mod Podge so that we get a nice crisp line. You know that the Mod Podge prevents the paint from bleeding under the vinyl. I'm sure you guys know that by now. And I'll use another cosmetic sponge to pounce over the stencils with my watermelon paint. I did have to apply like 4 coats to this to get the vibrancy of red that I wanted. When the paint dries, we'll peel off the stencil to reveal the numbers. I originally designed this so that the numbers would be angled within the sections, which is how most Carnival wheels are, but it just didn't look right to me. I couldn't get them to look the way I wanted, so I turned them around so that they're lined up like this. However, my husband did point out that it probably would look more like a Carnival wheel had I done the numbers on the angle. And I think he might be right. I just couldn't get it the way I wanted. So here we are. But I actually do like the way this looks. Yeah, so that's definitely up to you, whatever you prefer. You know, you might actually prefer them on the angle. I want to pull in some of that blue. So I'm going to add a drop shadow down the right side of the numbers. I'm doing the right side because this stencil already had a highlight to the left, as you can see on the numbers there. So yeah, the shadow will go on the right. I'm using a very fine 000 detail brush to add this, keeping the line as thin as possible and as close to the number as possible. Another thing I had originally thought of doing was obviously to make these spent like a Carnival wheel would. But then after I thought about it, I thought, you know, it'll be much easier to store these after the summer's over if they don't spin. So we're not going to be doing that today. My wheels will be stationary. It would be really easy to make them spin. You could just add a screw with a nut on the back or a bolt, that would work. But again, for my purposes, it's just for aesthetics. So I didn't bother. Finishing up the drop shadow here, and I'm liking the way that's looking. I'm going to add a large vinyl blue star to the center of the wheel, and I'm going to add a couple of smaller stars to each section alongside the numbers. I'll add a watermelon drop shadow to the stars, again along the right side. I just want to be consistent. You feel me? I added a dotted trim around the circumference of the wheel with some watermelon, and I'm just using the end of a paintbrush handle to add the dots. I thought this added a festive appearance to it, and you know what? It was way easier than trying to outline it and keeping the line straight. Starting from each point of the center star, I'm going to use Ocean Reef and dot on a line to divide each number section. Once all the dots are dry, I'm going to spray it with a coat of clear matte sealer. To give it a more authentic appearance, I want the wheel to stick out a little bit from the easel, so that's where the wood slats and the wood cubes come in. I glued the cubes about an inch off the end of the slats, just like this. I'm using wood glue and a wee dot of hot glue. I'm going to flip the wheel over, making sure that the numbers are where I want them to be, right side up. And then I'm going to glue the cubes to the back of the wheel. I'm marking out on the wood slat where I want the easel legs to go. I'm also making little marks on the easel so I can line this up properly. and I'll attach the easel to the wood slat using both wood glue and hot glue. And that's pretty much it. This guy is done. Again, my guy's stationary. You might want to make yours spin, but I'm pretty happy with this the way it is. I added a little 10 cents to play sign at the bottom, and I think it looks really cute. Let me know what you think. Let's take a final look at today's projects. Here's silly Ceilia. She's very proud that she can balance those multiple balls on the tip of her nose. She's going to be one of the centerpieces of my Carnival display. Love her. And here's a look at our Carnival wheel. I do really like this, but I think my husband may probably be right. I should have fussed around a little bit more with the numbers on an angle to see if I could make it work. Maybe I'll update it in the future. But in the meantime, I really do like these, and I think these are going to be really cute flanking some of my other Carnival pieces on my highboy. So I hope you liked today's projects. Please let me know what you thought. And I want to thank Dawn and Jody for co-hosting. Please be sure to check out their channels. You'll find links in the description box to their channels, as well as a link to the playlist. You're going to want to check out all the videos on the playlist. We have some really talented friends joining us today. Whatever your style is, you will find some inspiration here. Please be sure to show all the creators some love. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and all that good stuff. Stay creative, my friends. Thanks for hanging with me. See you next time. Up all night with Monica.